Hello music therapy friends! This is Sean here. I've got the first video in a series of 3 designed to kind of give an introduction and exploration into home percussion. This is something that could be really useful for keeping ourselves entertained, keeping ourselves sane during our mandatory staycations that we're all having. So this first video in particular is just going to be an introduction to the things that we're looking for and where to find them to construct kind of a home percussion set. The video in general is mostly geared toward staff and parents about where to go to find this kind of stuff and what we're going to be using it for. And in the next couple videos we'll do specific examples as well as examples of some songs so we can actually get some music going. Alright, as a brief introduction, I want to talk about kind of the 3 types of percussion instruments generally speaking. A lot of percussion experts break them down into 3 different types. The first is going to be scrapers, then it's going to be shakers, and then it's strikers. So those are your big 3 S's. We won't be doing anything with scrapers. There are a lot of excellent examples of those in like real life, actual professional grade instruments like a cabasa, and lots of different instruments that have kind of 2 different surfaces that move across each other to create a really pleasant scraping sound. That we're not going to be doing so much with. It's definitely something that you could explore on your own though. Just because we don't cover it here doesn't mean it's not possible and couldn't be a fun thing to do with your time. But we're going to focus mostly on strikers, which that's your typical, if you think of playing with a hand drum, or if you think of like your favorite rock band playing with drumsticks, or in this case spoons that we'll be using. So yeah, those are going to be the 2 primary things that we're looking at. Another thing to consider when you're making your own drum and percussion sets are going to be the materials that you're using and the sizes. Material in particular affects tone more than pitch. So if you think of pitch being how way up high something goes or way down low, the pitch is different from tone, and that tone it's the quality of sound other than that. So you could have 2 sounds that are the same pitch but have a completely different tone. We tend to refer to that as being kind of a warm tone, warm soft tone, or a bright buzzy or piercing tone if it really cuts over everything. That in mind, I tend to be just in my own exploration finding a lot of wood, plastic, metal, and glass. Those are kind of the 4 primary materials that I've been finding and have been creating unique kind of timbres or tones when you're creating your own percussion instruments. The first type of tone I guess we can kind of look at is plastic. Plastic is going to be a warmer tone. It's going to not be extremely piercing. It's going to kind of sit in the middle. We would say kind of in the middle space. You can really break down where both pitch and tone sits amongst all the separate instruments in 3 levels, and you hear about these a lot where you go high, middle, and low. So the high tones are going to be more things like metal and glass, and I can give some examples here. That's a glass example. This is a mason jar, and it cuts way up high. So if you've got a lot of instruments going at the same time, you're going to hear that a lot more clearly than you would something like a plastic set. That's plastic. It's kind of more dull sounding. And you can manipulate that differently as well. Yeah, we'll talk about that now. So something to think about too when you have especially any sort of emptied out like a Tupperware, which is, Tupperware, that's the money pot right there. Lots of good instruments can be made out of Tupperware or bins and things like that. And when you're looking at an emptied out receptacle of any kind, you want to think about the size of the instrument itself. That's going to affect the pitch. So if you've got a really big emptied out bin like this right here, that's the down low that we're thinking of. That's kind of where the dance beat goes. That's the sound that hits the floor. And in the middle space, we've got kind of the smaller size Tupperware here. We can talk about muting it as well. Any sort of instrument that you are going to strike or play with your hands or with any sort of sticks or mallets, you're going to want to have at least consider the space on the bottom where it's open. So when you're, in this case, placing it on a table, if you're going to put it over the edge, you want the empty open space to be considered at least when you're playing along. So if you want to produce more percussive, like a sound that will carry and it's bigger and more open, you want to have a big exposed space. It lets all the sound come out, all the air is going to escape that way. Or if you want to mute it or make it quiet and more dull, you want to put it flat over a surface, or you could, you know, put any sort of obstruction beneath it that's going to prevent it. Versus, so one gets louder based on the sound of me playing it specifically. The other was making some sound from the other instruments we have here. So yeah, those are a couple examples. Wood is going to be kind of a softer version of glass is what I'm finding. It's a little more warm while still being bright. And then we've got our metal options here, which are going to be much louder. You want to think of like the hi-hat and the kind of crash cymbal, ride cymbal. Those are the big, really dramatic sounds that you're going to get out of a drum set. So big, piercing, lots of sound with very little play. And those are the ones you're also probably going to want to limit the use of, possibly for your and your neighbor's sanity, depending how excited your client or your kid is. So that's going to be wrapping up the introduction. I'm going to see you soon on video 2, and we're going to go through specific examples and some kind of workshop things for how to create a couple unique instruments as well. All right, I'll see you soon.